Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of TechPixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And we're speaking today to someone who had a major impact on my son's life. When last year, well, it was about 2 years ago, he was trying to get into his dream school. And if you've been following TechPixies at all, we love talking about dreams and going for dreams. And he was really struggling with the English element, writing his stories and getting prepared for the exams. And it just so happened that we had a tech pixie who was a superstar at helping young people really prepare for their entrance exams and just is all around awesome English woman. So I'm so grateful that Cassie's here today to talk on the podcast about her business, but also more importantly, how she has learned to use social media and then how she's launched a digital course all through the Tech Pixies community and the partnership we have with Digital Course Academy. So Cassie, welcome to the podcast. I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while, so I'm so grateful that you're here.
So nice to be here. So it's a real honor. And thanks for having me on.
Well, tell us the background. What were you doing before you found Tech Pixies or Tech Pixies found you? What were you doing?
Well, literally, at the time, we were all in lockdown, and it was absolute carnage because prior to lockdown, I'd been a full-time English teacher with various add-ons like language A-level and media and literature and sixth form college and then secondary school for it was almost exactly 19 years full-time. And then I'd had my and I think it's quite familiar to ladies connected to Tech Pixie sort of moment where, to put it kind of neutrally, there are issues with, I think gender and age based, which meant that it was becoming basically also given part-time hours after a major health scare, despite 19 full-time years of excellent service.
So you had 19 full-time years and then you had a health scare and then you wanted to have part-time hours and they said no.
They wouldn't.
Wow.
But the guy got it though. He got it. Yeah. It's actually 14 years at this particular place. And so I'd already pivoted once. And this was a big thing because teachers are, lots of diverse people go into teaching, but it's so exciting when you're in that room with the door closed with children. But in terms of the adult world side of it, it's quite static and predictable. Like, where you're going to be at 9:15 every Tuesday morning, for example. So I'd left this very kind of pre-planned work lifestyle, and then I'd gone part-time for 1 year and I'd really enjoyed it. But the problem was, in teaching, any teacher or ex-teacher will tell you part-time teaching is basically the same workload as full-time, just less money.
So you went somewhere else to do your part-time teaching? Is that because you couldn't get it where you were, so you went somewhere else, and then you realized part-time teaching is like full-time teaching?
It is. It's like it's the best kept secret. And there was travel, and they'd offered me a job, and I was like, I'd been quite ill and I'd felt quite betrayed. So I think my first tip to any lady who's kind of in a similar position, particularly if they've worked in education, is many of us have gone in thinking of it a bit like entering the church, like it's a vocation. And we quite mistakenly assume that they'll always look after us, and they won't, because it's all about the bottom line now. And they're so worried about staffing costs and everything. And you just got to say to any teacher, upper pay spine 3. And they'll all go, oh, yeah. And I didn't know, because my parents, grandparents and great-grandparents were all teachers. So I'm like the last of the Mohicans, I'm the last of my kind. So I'd done the part-time, and in the middle of it, my father died. And that was, thoughtful to the end, really, bless him. It was in the summer term. So we got, this was an all-girls school, we got everything done for them, and then obviously natural point to take time off. And then I just had this big thing, because I'd already been thinking about what am I doing, because I'd had this health scare and survived it. And then there's nothing like death to sort of level it off and make you reassess life, really. And then I thought, well, just tutor, just try it. You've paid down a lot of your mortgage, just try it. And I've always tutored even when I first started working full time as an income support because I lived and worked in London, where everything costs 6 times anywhere else. And it went really well. And it went so well that I'd worked out that if I didn't commute and just had the children pop over to the house, frankly, give or take 100 quid a month, I was on the same for 20 fewer hours a week.
Whoa.
None of the froth, none of the I have to go to a staff meeting for, yet another time for the guys in suits and lanyards to boast about how little they're doing. But hey, we've just built a new forecourt, so give that man a round of applause. It's got nothing to do with my delivery of literacy and creativity skills to young boys, nothing at all. But you have to go because you're on the payroll. And there were like numerous examples of that. And if you've had a life-threatening event, it's just shoved in your face how precious time is. And it was. So I just also realised how lovely it is to do one-to-one and how appreciative the kids are. And what really shocked me, I mean, I had an inkling, but I was in this the all-boys school I was in was a fantastic school in many ways, but it's a bubble because it was highly selective, and, the kids got really the best of every kind of teaching delivery out there. And, the bar was already set quite high. So you're still working hard, but at the higher level, because really at this sort of school, when they leave, they're probably going to go to Oxford or Cambridge, because why would they not when they've had such excellent education 24/7, basically? And I did think, well, that's not, what about what they're doing? Because I'd started off in post-16 state co-ed, and I knew there were other ways. But when you're face to face with a child who's at the local state primary and incredibly bright and clearly overlooked, or yet another boy or girl who comes through your front door who's obviously gifted and talented but neurodiverse, and the primary school teachers just either don't care or more likely really do care, but have been told you can't get involved because you haven't got the funds to do the assessment and get the ed psych assessment done. And then you really are directly making a difference, because it's you that hour a week with the child helping them, and you see the result. And we did that really well, and I had a huge intake from international students, because in London you have lots of families coming from all over the globe to settle, and they're aiming at the grammars and the indie schools, and they've got to get the English up. And then COVID hit. So after that, particularly the UK-based kids, I lost virtually all my business overnight.
Wow.
And because I hadn't been going that long, I didn't get any furlough pay whatsoever. And my husband worked in the NHS, so he really had an awful lot of trauma there. So then I just thought, well, you're going to have to do it, because I had a GCSE and, the 2 years below that, students needing support. So we tried Zoom. And then literally I saw your Facebook ad, and thank goodness I did. And thanks to Lisa for the amazing design, because it really grabbed me. And it's weird because I love tech, but I was 18 years old when I first put on a desktop PC. And I can remember ye olde internet when they were very polite and sent you an email, and, the downloads were like ebooks. And it is daunting. And when you work in a school, you tend to just focus on Word and PowerPoint and, frankly, quite crappy software to do reports. And then it was when you did that boot camp, and I realised, well, one, how exciting this is. And then you introduced us all to Canva, which was such a good idea, I thought, in the boot camp. And then I just thought, why don't you do a boot camp for the kids just on creative writing? Because I'd plateaued, because I could only do 20 hours a week, and I wasn't doing many hours a week now, because
this is the interesting thing about tutoring. So there's only so many kids you can work with.
That's it.
And this is the common problem. Well, it's a good problem we have with all the tutors who come through TechPixies, is once they learn how to build up their online presence, once they learn how to start booking online tutoring. And it's not that we teach you how to book online tutoring, but we give you the tools to be visible online.
Yeah.
And off the back of that, because you're already doing in-person tutoring, or you had experience doing in-person tutoring, you're able to just roll that into online tutoring. What is amazing is how effective online tutoring is, online coaching, online training is. It's, when we built TechPixies online, I had a real reservation about whether or not it would work. And we were actually online almost a year before COVID hit. So we were well into being
Yeah.
online. And what was interesting was about halfway, we were in that transition from face to face only to online only, and that we had a launch where we offered the option of online or in person, and everyone took online as the
Wow.
option. So
It's the future, isn't it? It's the
yeah,
way
it
we
just sort of
go.
went that way. But
Yeah.
what's interesting about what you were doing is, so you tried the tutoring online, but then as you were doing that, we were running our boot camp. You got excited about the boot camp. So that's the Social Media Superhero Boot Camp. And then you then thought, well, I can run a boot camp online for the kids I work with. So tell us about how that went for you and how building your online tutoring business went, especially going from one-to-one to one-to-many.
Yeah. So basically, I think the first thing I'd say to anyone else considering this is, I can only speak from the English side, but it doesn't happen overnight. I've put in hours and hours of work on it, and I'm still getting there. I think the eye opener for me was it was both. Well, it was particularly Amy's course that you had mentioned, and but actually seeing how you had structured the TechPixies course, because I just loved the way you had done that, and then you had mentioned Amy and also Jill and Josh Stanton, and I just enrolled on Amy's course, was just blown away. I know she has a corporate background, and it's quite clear because she's so organised, and a lot of teachers are very able but a bit ditzy. And then it just hit me. I know she does a myriad of different types of courses. You should get in on this. You should try and I mean, you know, they're so diverse. It reminded me of my post-16 teacher training back in the late 90s, where if you train for post-16, you train with people who want to train nurses or agricultural labourers or, you know, to teach history because it's post-16. So you train like with all the subjects together. And then it really reminded me of that, all these people who'd signed up to a Facebook group and everything who wanted to do wellness, many subtypes of wellness courses, or, you know, grief recovery and counselling, or how to play the ukulele. And I thought, but what about the kids? Like, you know, and I understand that the child audience is a very difficult one to crack because you essentially, everything you do, you have to tailor it really with the parents in mind as
You have
well.
to sell it to the parents, but deliver it to the children, which is, so that's different. Whereas we're selling it to adults and delivering to adults, you're selling to the adults and delivering to the children. But at the same time, the adults really want this for their children. So it is something to lean into. Well, this is really interesting. So just for those of you listening, so TechPixies has a couple partners that we promote every year. One of the partners is Amy Porterfield. I'm a huge fan of Amy Porterfield. We built TechPixies online off the back of Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy, which I talk about every year because every year we promote Digital Course Academy, and we're in that phase right now of promoting Digital Course Academy.
It's pretty amazing.
So Cassie signed up last year through TechPixies to do Digital Course Academy, and then has launched her program off the back of that. Now, one of the bonuses that we gave last year, which we're giving again this year, is the ability to do a one-on-one with me to like really map out your course. And that was one of it's one of the sticky points that if you've never built a course before, you need another brain to do it with. And even Amy says that in the course, like, get your bestie, you know, your business bestie with you to like do this. And a lot of times solopreneurs are solopreneurs. They don't have a business bestie. And so one of the bonuses was, you know, me and Cassie were going to sit down and map out her whole course. And it took us a while, a bit of massaging, but we really got there.
Yeah.
And
so grateful to you, honestly.
Well, explain to people how your course works, because it's a really, really cool concept. And I just want to reiterate, you know, my son did one-on-one with you before you developed this whole concept. And I think you would have loved this concept. So explain what we got to from where we were.
Yeah, of course. So I realised that children, because I'd done boot camps previously, they'd worked pretty well, and they were like an hour and a half on a Saturday morning. And I'd done things like help your child the 11 plus interview and little things. But I thought, what are they all struggling with? And although a lot do struggle with comprehension, the way things are going, that's arguably easy to fix with books and less teaching time. The biggie is creative writing. It's extended, well planned, technically accurate, innovative, and richly expressive creative writing. And so my idea was, and this was inspired by all Amy's brilliant tips on how to kind of crunch it and create your niche and all of this, was to, instead of doing a long thing like a 12-weeker, because kids have got such busy schedules, to deliver something in 5 weeks on the Saturday morning, when you would hope fewer children would have, after school commitments, although I'm planning to change that going forward. And I knew I wanted to just have a different aspect of creative writing every week. But then I realised there is one thing all...
Meaning like 1 week you talk about vocabulary, 1 week you talk about grammar, 1 week you talk about sentence structure.
Yeah, that's it.
And we talked about that, and we said, actually, and this is the craft with developing a course. It's like when I was developing TechPixies, it's like, do I teach the profile 1 week and I talk about every single network and how you set up your profile? And then do I teach the algorithm the next week and teach how every single network does the algorithm? And then I realized if we get to the posting week, it's going to be complete carnage, because teaching how to post on 7 different social media networks or 8 different social media networks, like, people's minds will be blown. We can't do that. So it's in mapping this out that then you restructure it. And so what's interesting is, so you talked about, okay, we could do sentence structure as 1 week, grammar as the next week, vocabulary as the other. And then what happened?
So then basically I realised that, well, all little boys, because I love to tutor all kids, but that by far and away my biggest kind of customer, an issue whether he likes it or not, is the young lads, sort of age 9 to 11 is the kind of core thing, but up to about kind of GCSE. But they all love the ninja. They love ninjas, can't get enough of ninjas, and I like ninjas too. And ninjas are all about focus. I mean, he's got his little button there. I wouldn't mess with him. So it's all about discipline and structure. So I themed it with ninjas, and then I just thought, well, let's just give them a fiction genre to bolt on every week. So to me, it's about 5, because they're younger. So it's a 5-week course, and on each of the weeks there are kind of 5 elements, some of which for the parents. So there are lots of ebooks. I think I've put in this Write It Like a Ninja course that I launched in the summer. There's 8 ebooks, which I know mum and dad will probably work through with the child. But I've designing and pitching, it's quite tricky. But I've designed it in a way that the children can enjoy it, and there's not much text, but there's lots of imagery created using AI art, because that's just amazing. But basically, so yes, they might study, say, the horror genre, and we'll work on how to write an introduction, because that's the first of the 5 narrative stages of introduce, develop, climax of the narrative arc, twist in the tale, and resolution. And then on the next week, we'll look at another genre, as we focus on the next narrative stage. So basically you're constantly giving it a bit of pep and a bit of variation, because of course they've got a shorter attention span. And then
so every week ended up being thematic, which was so cool. And then what we talked about and what you ended up doing, I think, was the almost like a bonus for each week to go deeper into sentence structure, to go deeper into grammar, to go deeper into
bonuses.
Those were the bonuses, which were required, but then actually you could tag them into the order that you wanted them to learn it, but make the focus be on the theme, which I think was just fascinating how you did it. And then you went and you got ninjas all designed up for each of the different topics. There's a ninja for each topic.
Sort of here in the background.
Yeah. And you had it all. And you worked with a designer online, right?
Yeah, I think, I mean, again, the advice you get from the tech greats, particularly Amy, is that do what you can, but try and avoid being static. Sometimes you have to take a bit of time out, and when you are really solo, it's hard, and it has been hard juggling it with. I still do some paid tutoring as well, but you've got to keep striving for clarity, and you've got to keep going forward. So maybe sort of delegate a bit And with me, I mean, I'm okay at designing things, and I've made films and ebooks with Canva, and I really owe that to you, because if you hadn't mentioned Canva, I probably wouldn't have looked at it, which is scary considering where we are now. But my big thing was just this designer who's based in Thailand, and he's just amazing. And what I loved about it was its serendipity and just keeping your eyes open and looking for opportunities, because I believe that we make our own luck, and half the time, is it really luck, or is it just noticing things that often, like seeing the gorilla in that baseball ball match, you might not notice it's there unless you're looking for other ways through. And I'd gone onto Fiverr originally thinking to try and find someone, because there's all this content, because this 5-week course will expand basically to 25, because the core will, I hope, beef up, and then you'll have a whole learning module on horror over 5 weeks, a whole one on murder mystery whodunits over 5 weeks. So I've actually talked to the boys about this, and they were up for it. So, you can't say better than that for market research. But I can't illustrate all that. And this lad was amazing, and it's good to see he's raised his prices. But he mainly gets his employment by illustrating for gamers like Twitch.
Which is so cool, because the boys you're reaching, they're all into gaming. This is I love this so much. So, all right. So I just think it's cool. And let's just talk about, for you, the future is online courses. You are sold on that. I mean, obviously you've got the ability to do one-on-one tutoring still, but the bigger vision is actually, I'm going to expand this repertoire. Kids can do it on their own. They can do it coached. You're sort of working through those dynamics. Yeah. And in terms of what I was amazed, and this is always part of the fun part of doing the launch debrief. So you do sort of a pre-brief where you say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and plan everything, and really get the idea of what the course is out there. But one of the things we also did before we even started planning your launch and helping you plan the course, we looked back at the successes of the boot camps you've done up until that point, and actually put together a way to measure the success of the launch. And yes, you actually didn't realize how well you had done.
That whole analytical thing I'm not so good with. And, I was very, very pleased to see that, I mean, they all came away with good feedback. I mean, the earlier boot camps were arguably even better value. I mean, the current one, I actually have the numbers down here somewhere, but I mean, it all worked because they stayed on my list because they had a good experience. But I was originally trying to do this more adult thing of, hey, do my bootcamp for 3 days and now pay me X thousands to be with me for 12 weeks. I don't think for most British families that's feasible, because there's still resistance to online learning. Yeah. But when they realise, and this is what I realised with your own courses very, very quickly, the quality and the value and the richness and the depth of it, you couldn't get it in a 1 hour one-to-one. I mean, you get other things in one-to-one, face-to-face, but I think we all have to, as educators now, accept that we've got to be really adaptable, versatile. I mean, it's been pivot. And in terms of tech learning, pivot again. And on top of that, there's this little thing in the corner called AI. And to me, that's a big threat. But I've embraced it now because, frankly, at the moment, ChatGPT, it can structure narratives and little stories well. But it can't, it doesn't do Donald very well at all. And it can't as yet empathize. So we're using it as a teaching aid at the moment. But I mean, to me, stories are just vital. And it's so important that we teach kids to harness all their thoughts, order them, polish them up, work on their vocabulary, because without stories, I think civilization's going to collapse. I think particularly the changes that AI will bring. And we've got to get parents of this thing like, oh, it's not face-to-face, it must be the work of the devil. Because I don't think it is. I think it's another side of a coin. But I mean, if I'd done normally 1 hour, just the one-to-one face-to-face, my rate then was £49 an hour. I would have made over those 5 Saturdays 245 quid. But by doing it just with a small beta group, because we're 5 kids, it's 645. And that's just a very basic starting thing. And of course, my numbers are smaller because I'm dealing with children. I can't have, 500 adults signing up.
But this is one of the ideas of building the self-study version of it, that they can go
Yeah.
through parent guided, that you've built
Yes.
all of that. So but that's incredible. That's an incredible shift. So that same, if you were doing a one-on-one over those 5 weeks, you'd make 250 quid. And then if you do the group program over the same 5 weeks, you make over 600.
Yeah. And of course it can earn for you. I mean, I haven't finished doing my recorded evergreen yet, but it can keep earning for you. I mean, I really don't think you can just, like you used to be able to with TS resources, make the thing and flog it and leave it in cyberspace. I think those days are definitely numbered. I think you have to keep going back and editing and tweaking them. So you have got the running costs of things like Thinkific and Canva and all of that. But there's nothing to stop you. And this is what I realised. And it was like light bulb, that there's core content that you can duplicate and use in a different one and another one, and that's fine, because other kids might not want the Christmas themed story, but they want the Halloween one. And it's just giving the parents a choice, because I run with a waiting list all the time, and for years I've just like lived with this sort of guilt that I
so
can't.
Right, so you've had a waiting list for your tutoring because you can't serve everyone. And actually now you can say, well, while you're on the waiting list, you can get started with this, and when a spot opens up, I can let you know.
And that means brilliant. When you come in, they're a bit more kind of primed and ready to go. And there's only one of me, and tech is there, and we need to use it. And if you put that much work in, you want as many people as possible to access it. And I will in the end turn them into ebooks as well, because I think a lot of families prefer the book, and I think all of that e-publishing is really going to take off.
Well, I tell you what, Cassie, I wanted to build an ebook bonus for TechPixies, so I know exactly who I'm going to ask to do that. You. Brilliant. Oh, this is so good. Okay, well, we've just organized a progression workshop on creating an ebook. That's going to be you. I'm going to book you in for that.
Yeah,
please say yes.
It's great how because I can remember, I mean, those really old PDFs, that they used to make, and apparently you can put video in now, and the kids know all this. And again, I've had lovely success with girls as well, but I do find that the younger boys, who I think for years have been quite cruelly marginalised, it's like, oh, well, he's good at sports and science and maths, he doesn't need English. Yes, he does. And like a culture, where STEM, I don't know why they're pushing STEM above all else. It should be surely equal, but they're much more adventurous with the tech. And I think it's a really good thing for them to kind of try these new things out, and they seem to be kind of more willing to experiment and try things like Google Docs and Zoom links, and making their own things. But
that is so cool. So Cassie, tell me, I don't even know, what would life be like if you hadn't found TechPixies and then found DCA? What would you be doing? How would that be different then? Like now?
Well, I'm so grateful to you, because if I hadn't, it's not just, I mean, I'd say it's 80% you and the course, and just showing what you can do for one audience, and me working out I could do it for a younger one, and changing things and crunching down a boot camp as almost like a lead magnet and all of this. But if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have bothered with Canva. I would have probably stayed like at 20th century tech skills level. I would not have learned at least 8 other key softwares. I think education, which has been static for decades, generations, needs. I would have probably got quite depressed because I was in the middle of lockdown. I'd lost all the students, and I'd have probably just written my own novel for adults and not really done any of this stuff for the kids at all. And I'd have just kind of probably had to cut down the hours sooner, because I wouldn't have been able to do online tutoring is, I think, more draining, because you're kind of looking and talking at the screen. There's no break. So I think the business would have just stagnated, and me along with it. And I wouldn't have met people like, yourself and Anne-Marie and Paula and, Roz, and all these people who've in different ways helped me kind of channel this a bit more, because we you know, we care about children, all of us care about children, and I think the next couple of years are going to be pretty scary and difficult, at least. And I think if we can produce a high quality, standalone, access anywhere, replayable resource that helps them feel good about themselves and relieves parental worries, that's a really good thing. And that is all down to TechPixies.
Oh, Cassie, I love you, and you've done such a great job. My son, of course, did brilliantly with your tutelage, and really, Cassie sort of came in to save the day because we were trying so hard to help him ourselves. He was struggling to enjoy it, and then Cassie came in, and he just fell in love with writing. And even today, he still talks about the things he learned from you and how to describe things in a certain way. So I can tell you, as a parent who's invested in Cassie's tutoring, I can tell you it's 100% worth it. And I'm so grateful that she's now built an online course. And I'm also grateful that you did the TechPixies course. So here's what I would say. In your opinion, and I'd love to know what you think about this. Would you say that it was easier to do DCA having done TechPixies first?
Yeah,
So
because I would not have had the confidence, I think. And yeah, definitely.
So if someone's listening to this and they don't yet have a social media following, they don't yet have a mailing list, they don't yet have tech skills, they need to do the TechPixies Bootcamp, which is techpixies.com/bootcamp. And that's the social media superhero bootcamp. And that's where we teach you all of that stuff. But
Yeah,
let's say someone's listening and they've already gone through the TechPixies course and they're all, they're a tutor, or maybe they have a course in their mind that they want to launch, but they've
yeah,
already got a social media presence, they've already got an email list, and they've
yeah.
already got some tech skills. Then you would recommend DCA.
Then I would recommend DCA. I think DCA is, I mean this is a compliment, but it's beautifully well organised, and I just am very grateful that Amy allows us to keep like dipping back in and going over it. And I think, it is not a case of, I think I might do a course. You have to, you've got to
It's
really,
like a
as
master's degree in
it's
digital courses.
well, she says you've got to be prepared to do the work. And I
Yeah.
think what you've done was so good, because there's all this fear, and just the thing about being seen. And when we did on your boot camp, the live, I was terrified of doing that. Why? I've stood in front of a classroom of various kinds of levels of disaffected youths for like 14 full-time
Yeah.
years, but it's different when you're on camera, and that boot camp gets you kind of in the mindset and thinking about
So
what
if you're
you're
afraid to
doing.
do a live on social media, come and do the TechPixies Bootcamp,
Yeah,
techpixies.com/bootcamp. And if you're ready to launch a digital course because you're comfortable being on camera and you're
yeah,
comfortable, being online and you're comfortable being on Zoom and you're comfortable with your social media, then go to techpixies.com/DCA Bootcamp, because there's 2 bootcamp options that you can pick this
that's
year. One is to
brilliant.
get your social media skills up to date and to get comfortable being online, to get comfortable being on camera, to learn how to use Canva, like Cassie said. And the other option is actually, do I want to launch a digital course? And actually, I think Cassie's explained it really well, that there's sort of 2 directions you can go. If you're not comfortable online, do the TechPixies Bootcamp, the Superhero Bootcamp, Social Media Superhero Bootcamp. And if you are comfortable online and you have a course in the back of your mind, or you're tutoring, or you've got a thing that you want to do, then the DCA Bootcamp would be the way to go.
Yeah, and I have to say, I mean, the way I did it with you, I'm just so glad, because I know enough now about Instagram, and by trial and error, what does and does not work. And of course, all the content's repurposable into things like Kajabi and Thinkific. So you will get there, but not everyone wants to do a course, nor should they feel they have to. But obviously, as an educator, it'd be a bit weird if I didn't. But I think that's great that you've done that. And all fair play to you and Amy, because you've both been such a huge impact. And just, I haven't even talked about the success stories that she mentioned, including teachers and like the not so shabby teacher. But they're all amazing, and her template really does work. I've adapted it for younger kids, but it's basically her template, liked for younger participants.
Yeah.
But I think it's amazing. I think we're in the generation now where many of us need not just one, not two, but 3 or 4 side hustles. And if you can digitize and coursify your knowledge, great, go for it. Yeah. I think.
Oh, thank you, Cassie. Well, I'm so glad you got to come on and share your story. I'm super appreciative of it. And yeah, and I love, we've had some live watchers. Claire Louise says, it's great to hear how you manage to lean into what you love. The care that you have for the education of children really shines. And I think that's so true. So Cassie, where can people find you if they want their children to do your amazing course, where can they find you?
Well, I'm on hamptonenglishcoaching.com, and on Insta, the handle is Hampton English Coaching, likewise Facebook, or just email me at cassie@hamptonenglishcoaching.com. And we're pretty booked up right now because we're getting to the plus season for one-to-one.
But you can go on the wait list and maybe you'll get the opportunity to learn.
Yeah, and we've got the Halloween creative writing course coming up in October, and we've got the Crafter Cracking Christmas Tale, boom, coming up in December, and the Ninja Write It Like a Ninja, which basically really drills the kids through the entire creative process of drafting, planning, just picking the pen up and
Write it like a ninja. I just love that so
learn
much.
the genres, they're all there. That will get going shortly after Christmas when the 11 plus season's winding down, and that will be Saturdays, 5 weeks, 10 to 11:30 a.m. And yeah, it's really good. It's all payment carted up, so it's quite easy to get a summary of the course and then decide whether you want to put your child through. But all the children who did it, I actually got 100% conversion, so they're now they didn't want to go, so they're now my full-time weekly one-to-ones as well.
So they not only love the course, but then they converted to one-on-ones. Yeah, I love that. Well, listen, I'm so proud of you and what you've accomplished, and it's so fun for me to get to have someone in our community who really embraced DCA, who did it, who is now making income from it, and now has actually a way to generate recurring regular income from it over the next decade, really, and more. And I just love that so much. Thank you, Cassie, for sharing your story.
Thanks for letting me teach your lovely boy, who is an absolute pleasure to.
Oh, he loved working with you, and he got into his dream school off the back of it. But actually, what it really helped him with, not only that, was when he then did his exams this year. So they sort of really prepped them to do their exams, and in fact, he said, I think I told you this, he said, they could have picked a better picture.
Nice, you got to analyze that exam picture. And
he said it was like such a boring picture. So I love that. You make the pictures very interesting for the kids. So anyway, so Cassie, thank you so much. Please go check out Cassie, the work she's doing. If you have a son in particular who needs some support, who needs to learn to write like a ninja, all the links will be in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Cassie. All right. Well, that was awesome. I love getting to talk to someone who's gone through the TechPixie program, got comfortable being online, learned how to use tools like Canva and email technology and Zoom, and then takes that confidence that they've gained from TechPixies and then puts that into something else, like launching a digital course or like launching a product or service. And so if you are interested in getting confident with social media, learning how to take off your invisibility cloak and becoming visible online, then our Social Media Superhero Bootcamp is the place to be, techpixies.com/bootcamp. And of course, if you, like Cassie, are a tutor or you teach something and you'd like to learn how to launch a digital course, then what I'd like to do is invite you to join the Digital Course Academy Bootcamp. So there's a digital course bootcamp. I think it's called Course Confident. It's by Amy Porterfield. And it's an introductory. It's $47. It's like a great introductory to digital courses. And of course, if you love the introductory to digital courses and you say, actually, I want to build my own digital course, she has Digital Course Academy, which is what I did back in 2019. And it was a really fantastic thing for me to do in order to build up my business. And in my next episode, I'm going to talk to you about the 5 lessons that I learned from Amy Porterfield about building a digital course online. Now, of course, Amy Porterfield's turned over $80 million in digital course sales. TechPixies is on its way to 2 million. We've crossed the 1.5 million mark. That's in pounds. So we're on our way to our first 2 million, our second million. And I really believe in it. We've been able to provide jobs to over 40 people over the last 4 years. Not all of them are still working for us, but we've been able to provide opportunities and jobs for over 40 people over the last 4 years. We've also been able to serve 13,000 women across the United Kingdom, and 875 of them through our social media management certification program, and over 100 of them through our Dream Builder program. And now we've got over 30 women in our Business Beyond Social program. So I have used the Digital Course Academy lessons to really, in training and modeling, to really build my business. And and it's not been easy. Like Cassie said, it's not been a walk in the park. It's been a lot of work, a lot of hours. But in my next episode, I'm going to share with you exactly the 5 things that I learned from Amy Porterfield that helped us build TechPixies into one of the top online learning spaces in the UK. And I really believe that with all my heart. We have over 500 5-star reviews. We have students who are making major, major progress and building wonderful businesses that are creating financial independence for them and are changing their families' lives. And I'm so grateful that we've been able to do that. I would not have been able to do that without DCA. There's really about 2 or 3 programs that I invested in as a business owner to learn how to grow my own business, and additional coaching that I invested in to bring in better coaching skills to my community. But I have to say, DCA was the starting point. DCA was the first online course that I purchased that changed everything. So I'm going to talk about that in my next episode. Thanks for listening. And like I said, if you're ready to launch your own digital course, go to techpixies.com/DCA Bootcamp. If you're not ready to launch your own digital course and you're like, I'm not even sure I want to be on camera on social media yet, then come to our Social Media Superhero Bootcamp, techpixies.com/bootcamp. Have a great day.